This is an 8-iron, and it's a dead shank.
Wow.
Way right.
Oh, takes a hop off the path.
You gotta be kidding me. Very tough pitch shot right here. You gotta hit it into the hill, one hop up and bite, and it's in.
Kind of like that.
Well, I would like to welcome back to the Sub 70 podcast five-time PGA Tour winner, Ryder Cup member, and let's just call him our PGA Tour insider, Mr. Ken Green. Ken, thank you so much for doing the podcast again today.
Good morning, guys. How's it going?
Well, let's first talk about our champion, Brooks Koepka. Your thoughts on the performance and the accomplishment of 2 major titles in one season?
Well, I mean, obviously he's played phenomenal, and the thing that I thought was impressive that no one else seemed to do as well as he did this week was he hit driver so often. And he, I understand they widened the fairways a little, but he's still the only one that hit the driver all the time and kept hitting it in the fairway and was able to just, wedge himself to death. And that's why he had so many birdie opportunities. And I don't think he's getting enough credit for how he basically dissected that golf course. Obviously everyone's, with the Tiger going haywire is going nuts, but his performance was so solid, with those drives. They're all hitting it long, but it's harder to hit it in the fairway when you swing that hard. And he was just smoking it.
Do you think part of the equation, I agree with you. I saw the same thing. This kind of flows into my next question. Is the ball and the newer equipment, let's say from your generation, allows that? And were you surprised more guys weren't hitting driver for, relatively speaking, it's still difficult, but it's easier to sort of let it go and hit the 2-foot fade compared to 20 years ago even? Is the equipment a factor, or why were more guys not doing what he was doing?
I think they were just trying to play smart golf, what they term smart golf. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But when that course was as plain as soft as it was, those fairways basically, are 35 yards wide, and that means they're 35 yards wide because the ball's not really bouncing. In most PGAs or US Opens today, the fairways are a little firmer, so 35 is still only about 20. And in my era, they were 25-yard fairways, but firm. You basically had about 12 yards. And, that's why accuracy and ball striking was so much more premium back then than it is now. I guess I can't figure out for the life of me why a guy doesn't just figure out how to hit. There's the bomb driver, and then there's that get it in the fairway driver, whether you tee it low or you hit the fade, that stock shot that every pro has. And why more guys don't use it, I don't get it. It's so you hit it in the rough, okay, you still, you're only a wedge away, you're going to be able to get it on the green. And it's maybe if some guys see what Brooks has done, in both U.S. Opens and then here, maybe they'll get it. Dustin is a similar way. He whacks his driver all the time, and when he's on, he's unbeatable. So, the proof is right there in those two guys.
How impressed are you? And obviously you're impressed. I'm impressed, but the way he has the ability. This is Brooks Koepka to. The majors come along and his focus is that much, stronger, better than a regular PGA Tour event. How hard is that to do where it's the most pressure, the biggest events, to ramp your game up for that level and be able to maintain it? It's not a one-time horse and pony show. He's done it, 3 times in the last 2 years. How impressive is that to you as a former tour player?
Oh, it's like I told you last time we chatted about it, it's like I couldn't understand. Obviously the guy's got stupid talent. How is he not winning more events? And then here he turns around and wins the PGA, and it's like, no one in the history of the game has started out and with more majors than golf tournaments. It just doesn't work. And the great ones that you compare, Jack and Tiger were dominating both. So how, golf, you just can't turn it on in golf. I mean, I know it's easier today with the ball, but you just can't say, okay, I'm going to play better because it's the major. You're not going to try any harder. If you're trying harder in a major than you are in another event, you're an idiot because that makes no sense. You're going to try as hard as you can every time you play in a tournament. So what is it about his mindset that things seem to click? Now, only time will tell. You got to give the kid another 10 years to see if this trend continues, which would be bizarre, beyond bizarre. But he's the only one in history who's ever done it at this stage. I mean, he's only 28 years old. It just defies logic.
Is he a Hall of Famer at this point if he stopped tomorrow?
Well, there's an interesting question, and I'm going to say no. I'm not as big a believer that majors should be the only reason you get in. I don't, and I love Larry Nelson. He's one of the nicest guys on planet Earth. But I don't think Larry Nelson, winning 10 tournaments, 3 of them were majors, and he gets in the Hall of Fame. To me, the Hall of Fame is like stud of studs. And unfortunately, it goes back to the dollars talking that you got to keep getting people in. How can you get in on winning 4 golf tournaments? If something bizarre happened and his career ended, his wrist surgery or something wacky happens, do they let someone in on he would have? Look at Payne Stewart. It's a tough question, but I've always contended you got to have both. There's guys that have only won 1 major, but they've got 19 wins, like a Kite or I think there's a couple others, but they're in. But a guy like a John Daly, who's got 5 tour wins, but 2 of them were majors, that's got no chance, and it shouldn't. So you have to have both. You just can't say it to the world, all right, these 4 events are the cream of the cream. It's kind of like, I don't mean to go off the beaten path here, but the world's going crazy over Tiger finishing second and all that, and people forget. If 10 years ago, if Tiger had finished second, he'd have been pissed. And how many times have you heard him say, "I'm not here to finish second"? You got to win tournaments, and what the number is. I think the LPGA has it the best. They have a criteria. If you don't get X amount, you're not in.
Let's talk Tiger. That was my next thing we were going to bring up. And back to your thing, I think it's or the Hall of Fame too as a sidebar. I think it's a really interesting debate, right? Because it's exactly what you said. If no one's got 3 majors and 1 tour win, and a win on the European Tour and a win in Japan, it's right. A really interesting career so far. We'll see where it plays out, but it's an interesting debate with Tiger. So my first question is your overall thoughts for him. Let's say even through Carnoustie and yesterday's event, where he's sort of progressing. Do you think this is what it is, where he's close but can't get over the finish line? And how much better do you think 2019 will be? Or is this what a guy in 42, 43 years old with 12 surgeries kind of is at this point?
Well, I've contended since he, quote, started playing again, that he was going to win another major. I mean, he's just too good a player, and there's no other way around that. He's going to have that stretch where he's going to put it all together. I mean, obviously, if the dope could have kept it in the fairway on the front side, maybe, as well as he was putting, and then the 14th hole where you hit another iron, he hit more drivers in the fairway than he did irons. Actually, if I think my memory serves me right, he didn't hit 1 iron in the fairway yesterday. I mean, you
can't do it.
You can't win, professional golf doing that. it just, and he only loses by 2, and that clearly cost him for the week. And it's that's for Tiger to figure out. I mean, it's hard to believe that, in my opinion, the second best player to ever play the game, whether it's 1A, 1B, they're both very close, and it's unfair to both, really, because they're head and tails over anybody else. It's hard to believe that he can't figure this out. And he's going through a stretch where he's almost a normal golf pro now, where, the little bit of that pressure speeds everything up and he gets a little quick, and he makes normal mistakes if you understand what I mean by that.
Yep.
Whereas he never used to do that at all. I mean, they never even registered. If you look at the other, most of his majors, I think all of them, he was ahead going into the last round, and he's just wiping the field out and not even giving him a chance. So here now, because he is a little more normal, he's having to play catch up all the time. And, whether it was Carnoustie when he first got up there, the body gets a little amped up, and it's a different feeling for him because he's not used to catching. So, if you look at the speeds of the swing and how fast the downswings were, to me, that's all aggression, which is the natural adrenaline of your body. And what he and Jack Nicklaus have done forever has been able to control that. And right now he's trying to understand that for the first time. It's a brand new feeling inside his body, and he's not going to ever admit to anything like that. So it's a matter of time. He'll figure this out, and he'll recognize it. And then whether it's next year, he's only 43, and in today's world, he can win. It wouldn't shock me if he wins a major when he's in his 50s. He's going to have those stretches, especially the Masters.
I mean, you can just think of it in the last, say, 15, 20 years. Stadler won in his 50s. DL3 has been competitive in his 50s. VJ's he still could have a legit 10-year run in him where he, 52 years old, he could still win on the PGA Tour. That's proven it can happen, and it does happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just, look at in an era when it was even harder than hard. Jack was finishing in top fives at 55 years old at the Masters and stuff. So, Tiger, fast forward to when he'll be 55, with the technology the way it is, he's going to have those stretches. He loves Augusta. It's the same track every year. He knows it like the back of his hand. He's going to have a stretch. It's just, he's just too good. I would be stunned if he never won a major or two again.
So back to the, you played at the highest level. You played on Ryder Cups with the most pressure you can imagine. So you've been there. And my question is, why is it happening, this is just to my eye, off the tee where it's exactly what you're saying, the swing gets short, the transition looks quick, but then when he gets into the fairway he needs to hit a little baby draw 138-yard pitching wedge, it's that beautiful soft arm swing. He seems to be controlling everything else. So do you agree with my assessment of what you're seeing? And then how is 3/4 of everything working the way he wants, where the adrenaline's not pumping and running, but yet it happens from the tee shots the way I see it?
Well, I mean, it goes back to he's never been the best driver of the golf ball, and that's the world we live in for the last, probably since the turn of the century, with the ball and the equipment getting so out of control. But, the thing that amazes me is that he is clearly the best iron player that has played the game in a long time. He's just phenomenal. So how he has not been able to figure out a shot that will get him in the fairway, it blows my mind. Think about it. It's a different world. I think the 13th hole yesterday was 188. There's a huge difference. I think Brooks hit an 8-iron, and quote my era or Jack's era, that's a 4-iron. Jack might have been able to hit 5-iron with a ball that really moves hard left to right or right to left, depending on if it's a mediocre swing. no one talks about how much more confidence you have in your head as pros. I know people don't understand this, but we have these up and down moments of, whoa. But when you have an 8-iron in your hand versus a 4 or 5-iron, that is a massive relief in anxiety. And that little extra adrenaline that isn't flowing because it's a 4-iron is easy to miss. It makes you quieter and allows you to make that perfect golf swing. And like I said, Tiger's iron game, or even Brooks, the way he was playing, is just they just hit it and go. And with today's, they didn't mention yesterday that pin on 13 was so far to the right edge that the hazard was right there.
Yeah.
And look how many guys kept stiffing it there.
Yeah, they just.
Now I promise you, Jack would never even have sniffed going at that pin, and nobody else would have in my area, because you couldn't take the chance with the ball. And that's the difference between today's game or one of the differences is that you can do that now because you're not worried about mishitting it. The idea that you can hit an 8-iron 185 yards is mind-boggling. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to people.
Do you think Tiger would be better at this point working with a noted instructor once again to sort of help him with that, if he would ever kiss and make up with Butch, or another high-profile guy that can deal with the circus that comes with it and all that other stuff? Or do you think he's still better off figuring it out on his own, and he's built a lot this year, and 2019 would be better? How, if you were hypothetically advising him, which direction would you go with that?
I'd rather, me personally, I think with today's world, with all the video and everything, and learn as much as he's learned about the golf swing through all these coaches and making a decision. I mean, his swing is clearly better now than it's been in a very, very long time. I mean, you could say it's good. It's as good now as it was, when he was just going off the charts in the early 2000s. But, so I think he needs more of another player's perspective where he might consider what you're saying, whether it's a Ken Green or a Jack Nicklaus or, a Bryson DeChambeau. But the hardest thing about great players is they believe how they're thinking is right. So in Tiger's mind, he's making all the right decisions. And, clearly he's not, because every one of us that watches, and when we see him hit it so far offline, it's like, how can you possibly do that? It's mind-boggling. And can someone get into that head or not? That's the unknown factor. And I always thought that his swing would slow down a little as it aged, but only time. Then I thought he would, if he could ever swing his driver like he does his irons, he could be just, almost Tiger of old. But something in his head doesn't allow him to do that.
Yeah, you watch
what
him,
is it?
You watch him on the driving range, on the precursor to the coverage where they're showing it, and the tempo looks completely different with a driver. It's paused at the
phenomenal.
top. And it's like, oh my gosh, can he? If he could just get that tempo.
How does he not see it?
I don't know.
I sit there and so how he hasn't seen that? I mean, he's got to see that. But the unknown factor is, in his mind, maybe he is trying to do that, but he's getting so amped up, and that's part about being a normal pro that I was talking about earlier, that he has never experienced this before, so he's got to figure this out, and this is what he will do because he's too good a player. He's going to figure this out.
I'm with you. Like I said, you watch that. I don't know how. I was wondering, like I said, with somebody with the credibility of a Butch Harmon to try to replicate that, because, it's like I said, the sequencing of his swing when he's on the range with that driver, it looks like he can hit a hook. It looks like a slight draw, a slight fade. The time he gives himself, and I don't see the compression of losing his height. It's just perfect looking. It's just turn, and Yeah, it's an interesting question of, as good as he is, how does he still struggle to get the ball in the fairway? And then, like you said, he shoots 64, without being able to put the ball in play, which is so important. I mean, is it super impressive that he shot the 64, or are you like, oh my God, if you could just figure out that last portion, you'd win by 7 again at an event like that because of your.
That's
interesting.
He had, every one of us knows that when you have the putter, you have the putter. And yesterday, he clearly had the putter going. And this is the great thing about today's greens versus, say, when Jack was winning his. It didn't matter if you had the putter back in Jack's area. It was so much pot luck. If a putt went in, it was scary. Whereas now, it's not. You can make putts from inside 20 feet like it's nothing when that putter's on. The greens are easier to read because of the fact that they're cut so much, smoother, and they roll so much better. Now, even these became a little soft. You could see some bumps and, some marks, but they still roll 5 times better than, my era or Jack's era. And when you get that putter going, you're going. And if he could have got it in the fairway, he probably could have, the hole he screws up yesterday on 14 when he got almost even with him, he hits an iron in the rough. And then, once you're in that rough with that nasty rough, even today's players can't get the ball out,
Yeah.
It's a mystery. And that, this is one of the reasons why Augusta's been so good to him, because you don't really pay the price like you do at a U.S. Open or a PGA. People forget, I don't remember the name of the course, but, he won one of the Opens, the British Opens, and I think he only hit one driver off the tee. I don't remember.
This Royal Liverpool was all baked out, and he just blasted 2 irons.
Right. But, like this week, he couldn't hit it, and only he knows this. And Tiger's never going to reveal to anyone what was going through his mind. And this is the unknown factor. Because I can promise you, for Tiger Woods to hit that many bad iron shots off the tee, he's got a little demon going on in his head. And whether it's just insecurity, I used to name my demons, but, he's got them, because you can't miss that. For a professional golfer to miss that many fairways with an iron, something's going upstairs. There's just no other way around it. And, he's normal. He's a normal pro now. He's understanding, but I mean, he's never going to tell you that. I promise you, because that's, that's admitting a weakness, but he'll figure it out though. There's not a doubt in my mind.
Any other players impress you this week? And then as a part 2 out of this, is Phil Mickelson basically just out of gas for as much golf as he's played this summer and being, close to 49 years old? So sort of a 2-parter there for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it goes back to, you just can't say, okay, it's the week of the PGA, I'm going to turn it on this week. You just, Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods come along once every 50 years, one guy. And, as great a career as Phil has had, I don't think he's tired by any means. That's overrated in terms, this is golf. I think he just had one of those stretches where, again, this is similar to Shinnecock, where maybe, and this is just me speculating in my head, he knew that this was going to be a great week in terms of him having a chance, because he knows he's been putting well this year. The fairways are wider than ever, and it's soft. And it was just like Shinnecock in that sense, that where they widened their fairways. So Phil really thought that was that chance. And once you get too excited about something, your whole body adrenaline changes. And maybe that's just what went haywire. And now of course you got the FedEx Cup and the Ryder Cup's coming. Now everyone's psyched because Tiger will make the team, or obviously he's going to make the team, and they're saying Phil will, and but it's like, if you go by past, is that a good thing? I mean, I know they're friendlier now than they were when they were losing so many Ryder Cups, but how do you explain, what's going on there that they've had so many losing Ryder Cup teams when Phil and Tiger have been on the teams? I mean, the two best players on the planet for the last, 20 years or so. And, the U.S. has done so poorly. Now there's this big, hoopla about, the Ryder Cup committee, and we're doing this and we're getting every the players in, all that crap. And it's like, well, it'll be interesting because, Europe has got a great team, and it's match play. Anything can happen. And I believe, and I might be off on this, I think this, we won the last one, and I think they just, after they lost 4 years ago, they came up with this, Ryder Cup committee, and it's like, well, what's going to happen if they lose it? Does that mean the committee's no good? They're going over to France. I can promise you, it might be one of these nastier places to play in terms of rowdiness and the booing and the heckling and all that kind of stuff. At least over in England and where they normally have been playing the Ryder Cups for forever, it's a very knowledgeable crowd. They'll yell and they'll scream, but they're not going to heckle you. France is different. It's a different mentality. They're not as golf knowledgeable. The one thing the Scots and the English do is they respect golf tremendously. And I think you're going to see a much different, almost like a USA, because, right now, basically we get a lot of the drunks and the people that act like idiots, and then they're heckling and screaming out. They're going to get that over there now. And it'll be interesting because there's no one team is better than the other. These are all great players. It's just whoever makes more putts wins. It's as simple as that.
Well, since I was actually going to bring this up, so let's segment into this. So you played on Ryder
Cups. I'm
Cups.
just trying to make your job easier.
Yeah,
segment in.
Perfect, actually. So we'll get back to the PGA. I have a couple more, but this is interesting. And this is why I said, any other players that you saw kind of impress you? So as of this morning, here's the lock of the 8. You got Koepka, DJ, Justin Thomas, Patrick Reed, Bubba Watson, Spieth, Fowler, and Webb Simpson made the team. So you got the 4 captains picks. And if you think I'm wrong on this, let me know. But let's just assume Phil and Tiger are in. Phil's currently 10th on the points list, and Eldrick moved up to 11th. So then here's my guys that I think are realistically your potential last 2 that you could put on the team. And if it was Captain Green's choice, the other guys I'm thinking, just based on points and performance of late, is Bryson, Xander Schauffele, Kuchar, and Kisner. To me, those are the 4 guys that could fill those last 2 spots. Who out of those, and if you think my assessment on Phil and Tiger is correct and they're basically shoo-ins, of those 4 guys, kind of based on points of performance, if we're talking about them, who would you pick for your final 2 for your Ryder Cup squad out of those guys?
Well, it's basically going to depend on how much influence Tiger has over Furyk. It's in years past, my personal belief is the reason that Tiger has done so poorly in best ball and alternate shot is because people are almost afraid to play with Tiger back in the day because he was, you remember, he was a different Tiger. He was more standoffish. He wasn't as friendly, and he was the best. He was an intimidator. And I think guys tried so hard to impress Tiger that you end up, crapping the bed. Whereas now it's a little more relaxed. So I think in that respect, it'll be easier. But if Tiger has that much influence, he's going to pick Bryson because they're like best buds now. And is that right or wrong? I don't know if there's, he is 9th. So, It's not like you can say he doesn't deserve it. He finished
Right.
ninth. I mean, it's not like it's not like you're picking someone who finished 50th.
Correct.
So I'm going to assume Tiger has that kind of influence. So now you're down to one guy.
Yep.
Is it? It's going to be one of those three, in my opinion, unless somebody gets hot. I think Zach Johnson has a chance. Based on the golf course that is supposed to be much shorter than for today's players, and very tight. It's supposed to be a really demanding driving course, which is perfect for Zach. So if Zach plays well over during this FedEx stretch, I think he'll slide in as the little shocker. Otherwise, it's either going to be Kuchar or Kisner, because Kisner's got a great reputation as being a pretty good driver of the ball and a great putter, and you can't argue with that. And I think Xander is basically just getting screwed. It's not that he's not getting screwed, but I think he's going to be the last man out.
Do you think I just see Kuchar not hard for me to see him not on the team? You could, if it's putts being made, you could pair him with everybody.
Yeah.
Do you think it could?
Well,
be?
It's like you can't really say that Kuchar's any better than Kisner or Kisner's any better than Kuchar. So it comes down to, well, guess who they've known longer?
Mm-hmm.
And it's Kuch, and Kuch he's a clown. He's supposed to be, he's supposed to be fun to be around. And this is one of the reasons I'm not a big fan of all these captains' choices and vice captains, because then they're throwing out their opinions, and it's it's a popularity contest. I mean, look at Bubba. Like from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It was an insult to golf for Bubba not to be on that team. I don't care whether they like the guy or not. It was an absolute insult, to have won 2 tournaments that year and not be on. Or look at on the reverse side, Darren Clark picked his buddy Lee Westwood, who had the damn yips. And, he picked over Russell Knox, who had won twice that year. And it's only natural. This is I would probably do the exact same thing. You're going to pick who you're close to.
And he's a known commodity, right? You know what Matt Kuchar is.
It's not like he's going to go out there and crap all over the place, because he's still a good golfer. I mean, I don't think he's this is a terrible thing to say, but he doesn't win enough. There's something upstairs that he gives away too many tournaments, Kuchar, but he's going to play good enough. He's not going to hurt you, but the record is the record. All you got to do is look at it.
Well,
he doesn't win enough for as good as he is.
They're going to have some interesting choices to make. It's going to be interesting to watch because, like I said, I think Tiger and Phil are locks. The last 2 positions, it's going to be fun to watch for the next 2-3 tournaments to see kind of
Well, the really big interesting thing that will really play with Furyk's mind and all his vice captains is, what if somebody gets hot that they're not even counting on? That just, a good player, because they're all good out there, and you're obviously, if you're, and say he wins 2 of them. How do you keep him off?
Well, right, i.e. the Billy Horschel rule, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what this came about. Right, exactly. But, right, that's what I'm saying. It's going to be, for golf fans, I think this run, on top of the playoffs being, I think they're interesting to watch anymore, but just to see exactly, does a stud, i.e. a Kuchar, a Zach Johnson, a known commodity, really push ahead like that? Or is it like a Billy Horschel? I mean, he's had a solid stretch the last couple of years. He's won twice.
Right.
He gets hot. How do you not put him on there? Right? And that's,
you have to. You'd be an idiot not to.
Exactly.
A hot hand's a hot hand. I mean, there's no other way around it.
It's going to be really fun to watch. Back to the PGA. Got 2 more here for you, and on that, and we'll get you out of Dodge here. But your thoughts on Bellerive, and did you play there in '92 on the PGA in the PGA Tour Championship? And what's your thoughts on that golf course overall, from the point if you have played it and what you sort of watched on TV and saw after they kind of did the redo on it?
I did play in '92, and I'll tell you a story. We were playing a practice round. It was Cal, Payne Stewart, and Freddie Couples, and myself, and because we always like to gamble, and we were waiting on the 13th tee, and now this is a Tuesday, mind you, obviously, and it's jammed, and so I decided to go walk up the tee and sign some autographs and talk to people, and the other three guys are just doing whatever they're doing, and just chit chatting back and forth, and a fan says, "Hey, what do you think of the golf course?" And I said, "Well, are you a member?" And he goes, "No." I said, "The course sucks." Everybody laughed. And an official happened to be walking by. And I actually get fined for that. I think the fine was I was not allowed to, criticize a facility. And I used the word suck, and that's inappropriate. Now, this is a Tuesday. Now, who on planet Earth gets fined on a Tuesday? And I'm the one signing autographs. So I don't, and I actually meant that. It's not a bad golf course, but it's, in my opinion, it should not be a major. It should not be holding a major, and this is what the PGA does. Kind of often, there's some sort of connection with Bellerive and the PGA and Hazeltine and the PGA, because Hazeltine's the same thing. It's just, it's a decent track, but it's not good enough to be holding all these events. Plus, it's August. What kind of course do you think you're going to get in August?
I live in the Midwest. Our course is soft all the time, so it's 90 degrees every day, a bunch of humidity, otherwise the greens will die. So this is what you're going to get.
Right.
It's impossible.
You just can't do it.
No.
Maybe in May, they have a better chance. They have the sub-air system, and maybe it would be a better golf course with the ball running and firm. But, these are supposed to be the so-called cream of the crop events, the majors. And this was basically just a normal tour event shootout, where, because everything was so soft. And it would have been soft even without the rain. Because like you said,
yeah, you have to.
It's August. It's St. Louis. It's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. They have to. Otherwise the course dies. So why would they even go there? I remember, I think it was 87, they went to Palm Beach Gardens. Now, that's Florida, which might even be hotter than St. Louis at the time. The greens were unputtable because they had lost them because of the heat. They paint them up and they look okay on TV, but they were just dirt. And it's it'll be interesting to see what the PGA does now that they're moving to May. They can't get out of some of the, like next year it's Beth Page. Well, you can get some cold days up here.
Yep.
And it's going to be, the ball won't go anywhere. Beth Page could play so long, the players are going to be in for a shock. Because, if you get that cold stretch, the ball goes nowhere, even for these guys. And, will they be able to adjust and adapt? And then a couple of years after that, they're going up to Rochester. Rochester, you could get snow, for Pete's sakes.
Yeah, in Chicago this year, we had a late spring, and May was awful. It was terrible. So they're even a little further north than we are potentially. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that works. It's, I think that. Well, what's your opinion? Do you think overall it's a smart move for them to go to May versus doing it in August? In the long run, in the next 10 years, do you think they could improve that championship?
They've actually been talking about this since I was on tour. And they never could get themselves to pull the trigger, and it was, it's a big toss up. I think it's a good idea. You basically have one of the big, I still think the TPC is a major. How can it not be? But you basically have one every month. They're trying to appease FedEx because FedEx is giving the tour, what is it, $40 million a year or something like that? So they're trying to make that FedEx a little bigger, and pushing PGA back, earlier will help them. And then the new commissioner wants to he basically wants to stop golf, right as football's starting. He thinks it's pointless to go up against football, which it is, but you can't just. The thing I worry about is the tour going to get to the point where it's almost an elitist game where, only the top 70 guys get to play every, because you got all these World Golf Championships, you got the majors that have special requirements, you got the invitationals, and it's like, if you start eliminating all these other events, where's a guy, not everyone's a Jordan Spieth that can be a stud when they're 22 years old or 23. Look at Brooks Koepka. It took him a while to figure it out or learn or have the faith or trust. He goes to Europe, plays their Challenge Tour, gets on the European Tour, and then comes here. So, not everyone is like Jordan or a Tiger that can be that good at 21. So you've got to give them tournaments to play. And this is what scares me about the future of the PGA Tour, especially when corporate money will start dying out when the new CEOs take over in 15, 20 years, because they're gonna wonder why are we even in golf. Nobody even plays golf anymore. It's the only people playing golf now are the old fuddies. I'll be dead. So who's our generation is going to be gone. And 50 and older is 2/3 of the golfers. So the tour's heading that way, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see in the next 5 years what happens with the fall season then, right? Where a lot of these guys can get on a roll, like Patton Kizzire did really well this year. Some guys can kind of establish a strong year. I think we had Ryan Armour on the podcast, who was, great for him to win that fall event and really kind of kickstarted his 2018 season. So I kind of, as a golf fan, I enjoy those fall events to see some of the veterans kind of break through who are on a hot streak, to see some younger players that, you heard about when they were in college, and sort of see these guys come to the forefront. I hope they keep that in there. I sort of enjoyed watching those events personally.
Well, that's the big mystery is, if those do get taken away and where does the young star come from that isn't, Joe Stud coming out of college or something, and, like I said, Brooks would be the perfect example,
right?
Because it does take some time to learn, for the majority of pros, even that if you look at history, and even more so in history because of the equipment, it takes, 3-4 years of being out on tour where you start feeling your stride and you start getting your faith and the confidence and in trust, because that's what it's all about at our level. Everyone out there has just as much talent. Each guy is maybe specifically better as a putter or a driver or an iron or short game, but they're all very, very good. And it's all about upstairs. But if you're not given that chance to be upstairs, to play, how can you improve it? And this is what concerns me about professional golf and golf in itself, because we're heading down to that golf has gotten so expensive that we're not as good as Tiger was for golf. And I hate to keep jerking all over the place here, but in terms of viewership and stuff like that, Tiger and the Tour are, in my opinion, very responsible for the demise of golf, because when all this excitement came about, everything got elevated. They started paying the players more. Everything went up. The purses go up. Everything goes up, which means prices go up. Prices for golf courses go up. Prices for clubs go up. And now we're at this point where people are like, it's too expensive. We can't do it. We can't do it. So they're picking other things to play, other things to do. It's a situation that they haven't quite understood, and much less come up with a game plan as to how we're going to keep golf going.
Yeah, and I as a sidebar here, though, it seems though that they're not, at least from when they are building new golf courses or they're renovating golf courses, I think they're starting to take out what happened in the late 90s, early 2000s. out of the equation of waterfalls and forced carries and huge amounts of green grass for maintenance. I'm hoping that trend line, like all the publicity Sweeten Coves is getting in Tennessee. I haven't played it yet, but I dig what they're doing, of more natural landscape and all kinds of levels of players can play it. And it's reasonably priced, and that's getting all kinds of publicity versus the extreme example, Shadow Creek or something like that, where it cost, $18 million to build the damn thing.
No,
I'm hoping that trend line keeps continuing because you and I have talked. I grew up on a 9-holer.
Billionaires are building these courses for themselves now, and it's like, okay, I would love. I don't know any billionaires, unfortunately, but I would love to sit down and talk to them and said, it's your money. I get that. You can do whatever the hell you want. I don't care if you build 2 courses for yourself, but if you love golf like you supposedly do, why can't you build some 9-hole facilities around the country or in your towns where you basically let adults and their kids play for $2? It'll cost you $400,000 a year to maintain the place. Let them fall in love with the game. Some won't, but if you sell that to a parent that the best way to stay connected to your kid through their teen years is through golf and the development of them maturity and making good decisions during your teen years that a lot of us don't. If you look at golfers, we've got a good track record of being mature beyond our years at 14, 15, 16, 17, because you're hanging around adults all the time. You're around a sport that's very respectful to everything, life in general, to people. So you mature faster. I mean, it's just 1 + 1 is 2, but we got to sell it to the adults to convince them that this is the best way to maintain a phenomenal relationship for the rest of your life with your kids. If they play golf and you play golf, you will always. How many times does the parents come visit their kids and hardly have anything to say sometimes? Oh, I love you, and this, that, but they don't do anything together. Golf can do that to you, and we need to sell that. And no one's selling it. It just annoys the crap out of me.
It's the way I grew up on a 9-hole golf course in Chabot, Illinois, which has a population of 800 people that you could run every ball up on. They had a minimal watering system, and you could be a 20 handicap, and I still play it with my dad. And my dad's a 20 handicap, and he's 75 years old, and he can bunt 7 woods up through the gap, and it's still a fun golf course to play. It was very reasonably priced. When I was a kid, my parents could afford it for us as a family to have a membership. And it's exactly what you said. The lessons I learned out there from mom dropping me off with a couple bucks in my pocket, the old guys weren't going to let you get away with anything. Nor should it was it was like parenting by community out there. And your ass was in trouble if you ever did something stupid. You wouldn't even think of doing it. Oh my God! Because if
no, you didn't. You didn't even come closer. You look at
because to lose that privilege.
It really is. It's amazing. And
oh my God! Yeah,
I would love to have on these 9-hole facilities. I would love to have learning centers in them. Where you get the community to cough up backs, where you can almost bust some kids over there and teach them these values of life, along with some golf and with some education. And I mean real education. We all know what they're teaching in school today is pointless and useless. We have to understand that not everyone is a genius in this world and going to college and this. So why not teach them how to survive instead of telling them, all right, you just graduated high school, now go figure out how to live. It doesn't work out so well.
The lessons like I said, just looking back as an adult on it, it was a great way to spend time as a kid with our family. And what I learned from it, how to talk to adults when you're a kid, right? How that interaction is supposed to work and the respect factor. I hope that trend line continues of building these courses for the game that are more user friendly, and let people. I think you ever watch? I'm sure you have. You played in pro-am stuff. You watch a 18, 15, 20 handicap play some of these modern golf courses with forced carries and deep bunkers. It's a disaster for them, right? They can't do it.
Yeah.
They can't do it. And I hope with this Renaissance and sort of golden age architecture, even though it's new, where you use the ground and you don't have to spend, like you said, $1.5 million to maintain the facility. I think it's good for the game overall, and I hope we see more.
This is why Nicklaus comes up with, well, we've got to make the hole bigger and stuff. Well, I'm an advocate of making it a little bigger, but not that much, but like Jack is. But the reason we're doing this is because we're making the courses too hard. So Jack's responsible for what he wants in it. He doesn't understand it because he's the one that's making these golf courses so damn hard. You know, that really good players can up and down it around the greens. But when you put this bunkering that they put in some of these places, there's the guys like your dad that you were talking about. It could take them 2, 3, 4 shots to get on the green.
Correct. Right.
So if you're new to the game, you're not going to hang around very long.
Nope. But if you can run a little 5-wood up from 160 yards, even if you don't have a lot of horsepower, and the thing trumbles on the middle of the green, and you made 3 pars out of 9 holes, and you smile on your face and had a beer afterwards, you're coming back. You made a par. Yeah. You made 3 of them. Yeah, I agree with you, man. How
many times have you heard courses say, "Oh, we're going to go back to the original design. You know, we found some old designs. We're going back to that and all that." And I'm always like, "Oh, that's great." I said, "But are you getting rid of your sprinkler system?" "What do you mean?" I'm like, "They didn't use sprinkler systems back when this course was designed. You do realize that, right? You know, now they keep everything so green and lush, and you need the ball rolling 40, 50 yards. Because, again, guys like your father or young people need that ball rolling."
It's funny you say that. When I was growing up on that 9-holer, they did not have watering systems on the fairways, just the greens.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, think about it. Very seldom, if any of them, they always use hoses. The Supers went out and hosed the greens. That's all they did. The rest was Mother Nature.
Yep. Yeah.
And then somewhere along the line, all of a sudden, everything's got to be this perfect green, soft as bologna, and it's a nightmare.
Well, let's hope they keep going the right direction. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. They're always fantastic. It's truly an honor and a pleasure to have you on every time. I really appreciate you doing this for us. So have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Ken.
All right, have a good one.